Welcome, and thanks for joining me on the Ultimate 180 podcast. If you ever felt exhausted, overwhelmed, or trapped in your own life and wish you were able to have a complete life makeover, then you're in the perfect place to learn how to pull an ultimate 180, change your life beyond all expectations. I'm your host, Christina Walker, and today I'll be sharing with you one of my all-time favorite methods on how to create massive transformation in your life in a very simple way that also eliminates all the overwhelm that creeps in when we make significant changes. In fact, it's so powerful that you can use my 3-step secret weapon in any area of your life. Exciting. So first, I'm going to fully explain my method to you, my secret weapon. Then I'll give you a 3-step process on how to use it with plenty of examples so you can get started immediately. Ready? Let's simplify and navigate change together, 1 degree at a time. Let's do this. If you're new to me at all, and if you know anything about my background, I have been a business coach and a business consultant for over 20 years. And when I started out, I was really focused on people's finances. I really wanted to help them build their businesses so they could make more money. And I was very, very myopic in just looking at the finances. So we would go over spreadsheets and, reports and such fun. Anyways, over the years, and it worked. But over the years, I found out that there was a lot more to it, that I could help them in a bigger way, and they would be much happier while they made money, which was really kind of fun. So that's how I've kind of transitioned from just businesses to helping people in the same exact way. And I kind of came up this method after realizing, like, how am I helping? What is this method that I'm using to help them with the totality of their life, to make their life better, happier, inclusive of their relationships and everything that goes on outside of work while building their business and making them more profitable? And really what it came down to is what I call my secret weapon, this method. And it stems from something that you've probably heard of. Drum roll, please. My secret weapon is compound interest. Now, don't stop, because I know to a lot of people that sounds super boring. And it also may seem very overwhelming, and it may seem very long and tedious. But the exciting thing is that when we take compound interest and we compound interest our life, it could be very quick. It takes away the overwhelm, and you are in control of the whole thing, because that's why compound interest, when we think of compound interest with finances, and just a little review, if you remember why compound interest is so exciting to a financial person, is because over time, right, we have this beautiful little curve that goes up. Over time, you see that you're building momentum and you're building interest on interest. And what makes that seem so long and tedious is usually we're not in control of the interest rate. We may be in control of the money, but we're usually probably not putting enough in and at increments that are enough to build that super quickly. So there's a lot of things that we are not in control of, and that makes it a very long process. But what's exciting is when we compound interest our life, we're swapping out the money for something, right? That's the same formula. We're swapping some things out, and everything is under your control. So when we talk about change, I want to give you an example of a life change where this would be the perfect way to create change in a more simplified and less overwhelming manner. Let's take New Year's. Everybody loves these resolutions. Well, not everybody, because I don't do resolutions. I usually create a theme, because resolutions, as we know, drop down pretty quickly in January. And there's a reason why. It's because it's overwhelming. We try and create change in leaps, absolute leaps, instead of tiny little degrees. And what I want to teach you is how to create little tiny degrees of change that get you to that 180, right? By like tiny little steps, but you get to control the speed of that so that you don't create overwhelm. So let's take a New Year's resolution. I was at the gym and I was working out with my workout buddy a couple of years ago, and she comes in January, and she has these resolutions that she is going to change her health. And what does that mean to her? Well, it means that she is suddenly going to go from working out 3 days a week at the gym, doing weight training, to working 3 days a week weight training. She's going to run 5 days a week, at least for 30 minutes. And she's going to start meditating for an hour a day. And I'm like, oh my God. So if anybody here has ever meditated, to start, and she has never meditated before. Okay. So if you've ever, or if anybody here is in the practice of meditation, or even if you're not, you will still understand this example. Meditation is called a practice for a reason. You can't just take your brain that's never meditated before, especially if you're a little bit of a hyper person, and just turn it off. It's not that, especially for an hour. I mean, can you imagine just, I'm going to meditate for an hour out of nowhere. And so I said, wow, I said, that seems like a lot. That's a lot of change really fast. I mean, great. I'm so glad you want to make this commitment to your health. But have you ever meditated before? Well, no. I said, turning your brain off for an hour and allowing meditation to happen. I said, it's kind of a practice. I said, you might want to start with like 5 minutes. I said, and then, maybe even 5 minutes, 3 days a week, or something that you can really commit to, because 5 minutes of meditation can seem like a lot longer when you're not used to it, right? 5 minutes of anything when you're not used to it, when it's change, can seem like a lot. And she's like, oh, that's probably a good idea. And thankfully she took my advice, because otherwise there was no way she was going to sustain that. And then she'd probably give up on meditation completely, because that is completely overwhelming. The other thing that happens when we commit to a change of such a large degree is that you are actually sacrificing something else in your life, which also contributes to your overwhelm. And when I say sacrificing, I know some people might think, but you're doing something for the better. It's true. You are trying to do something for the better, but you're literally sacrificing an hour out of what you're used to doing. And not that those habits are healthy habits or going to benefit you in the future, but these are the things that I'm talking about is what causes this big, huge overwhelm. So now if you're only sacrificing 5 minutes of your day, and when I say sacrificing, that literally could mean sitting on your couch scrolling social media, right? And yeah, is that helping your life any? Probably not. But you're so used to it that it feels, even though it's something you want to do, it feels like you're taking something away, right? It feels really difficult. And when I help people make change, I do not want it to be difficult, because it's not sustainable when it is difficult. So nobody wants that. This is what's going to make it easier for you to create change, is when you start with small degrees of change, and incorporate them in your day. So what makes my formula the same as compound interest is we are going to make a swap from money to what I call MDCs, micro degrees of change. And this is what this whole compound interest your life is about, is micro degrees of change. Teeny tiny, consistent thoughts, decisions, actions that lead toward your goal, to whatever that goal is. And maybe this is in multiple areas of your life all at once. That's possible, but you've got to take it at your own speed. And yes, it depends on how many of these little decisions that you make and these little actions that you take. The more you make, the quicker you're going to get that momentum, right? So, and the momentum really depends on how much time and effort and how many of these areas you attack all at once. And that's up to you. But let's keep overwhelm out of this. So if you're new to this, especially with thoughts and actions, because some people's thoughts, especially if you're an anxious person, if your thoughts are overwhelming to you, then we need to take this really slow. And it's okay. your 180-degree change should not be overnight. That is so difficult. And that is so hard. And that's when when things happen to us in life, that's why they feel so hard. It's because you just 180'd and your entire life looks different. So if we want to change back to that life or we want to change into a new life, we've got to create these little teeny micro moments of change. So the steps are, and then I'm going to go through them and give you more examples. The steps is one, what is your focus? What's your focus area? What exactly do you want to change? And this can change too. You might start to change something. Sorry. You might start to change something and realize, oh, well, that's not exactly what I wanted. That's okay. Because when you do it in my method, because we're doing it a small way, it's easier to pivot and change directions. If you make this massive change, I'm going to go to hot yoga 5 times a week. What if something happens? It just happened to me. I got vertigo. And all of a sudden, now your plan isn't going to work at all. Well, now you've made this huge commitment. And then you're like, oh, now I got to research what else I'm going to do. But instead, if I had said in my health, oh, I'm going to jump rope for 2 minutes, 5 times a day, 3 days a week. And that's what I'm going to start, right? That's a different routine I'm going to start. And let's say you miss your first 2 minutes of the day. Not a big deal, right? You didn't just miss the entire week because of an injury. It was 2 minutes. Oh, okay. I'm going to reschedule that 2 minutes, or it's okay. You know what? I'm new to this. I'm going to give myself grace and I'm going to move on to the next 2 minutes when it comes up on my alarm, right? There's also that kind of that period of time it gives you to say it's okay. And if you miss it, you don't have to start over. I think that's what happens too when people start working out and I'm going to go to the gym 4 days a week and I'm going to lift weights. And all of a sudden they have an injury and they can't. Now they can't go back to the gym 4 days a week. And now all progress is lost. And now they're out for months and they have to start over. Let's not do that anymore. Let's start small. So again, first step is you've got to identify what it is that you want to change. What is it? Give just something specific. It can be anything. It could be in a relationship, a better relationship, a new relationship. It could be a career. It could be a job change. It could be you want more money. It could be you want better health. But specifically, what is it? You got to really dive in and figure out, get some clarity on one thing. Just one thing. Just make it little. Don't make it stressful. Just figure out one thing. And again, if you're making a whole 180-degree life change, it's probably going to be multiple things. And that's totally okay. So when I tell you a little bit more about these steps, I've got a little simple trick on that one. Number 2 is we've got to start noticing our thoughts and our actions throughout the day. And that is huge. And I think that's where people forget to do the work. We have to start noticing, what are we doing? What am I thinking? There's a huge difference when you go into a meeting. Let's say there's a meeting that you're going to have with whether it's a boss, a friend, anything, and it's going to be contentious, or you feel like it's going to be contentious. And you go into that meeting and you've already built up in your head this story, right? Because it's kept you up all night of what you're going to say. That meeting has very little chance of having a positive outcome, because you have every thought and action in your head has gone down a road that this isn't going to end well, that it is going to be contentious. And so we've created that in our head. We've given ourselves very, very little possibility for a better ending. So instead, what if we wanted to change our relationship with our boss or whoever this is? And we started thinking about, okay, I've got a meeting with him. What if I walk away from that meeting feeling great? And he walks away from that meeting feeling great. What would that feel like? What would that be like? Maybe there's a great solution. And when you keep reminding yourself the little micro degrees of change, Remind yourself every time you go into that same pattern, oh no, I'm going to, this is going to be bad, or oh, how am I going to defend myself, or whatever it is. That's those moments that you need to stop, put a little stop sign up. Wait a minute. What would be something better? What would I prefer to have happen? And stop ourselves. That's a micro degree of change right there. When you change that thought and say, hold on a minute, I'm not going down that road anymore, because I want to enjoy this kind of work. I want to move forward. I don't want to have to fight for my job. I don't want to have to fight for more money. I want these things to happen to me. And I want to attract this. And the only way you can start doing it is these little micro degrees of change, even in our head. So they can be actions, they can be thoughts, they can be decisions, these little micro degrees of change. So number 3 is then actually making a decision, taking an action that supports, number 1, supports that focus that you want. Those are the 3 things. Identify your focus. You got to notice. That's a big thing. You got to notice when you start taking actions and thoughts and making decisions. And then you've got to align those little tiny thoughts, decisions, and actions towards your goal. I'm hoping that's starting to click for you. And then again, this is how you can make huge momentum quickly. Because if you start to get really good at stopping yourself and saying, oh, wait, this is not who I want to be. I want to be this person over here. Well, then what is it that is going to align with that? What action do you need to take? What thoughts would that new person that you want to be, what would they do? And relax in that a little bit and just minutely make changes, little teeny tiny. Here's one for health. It's kind of fun. Because again, I like to do things that are fun, simple, and joyful. I like change to be happy. I do not like difficult change. And these are all the reasons that people feel that it's difficult, is because it's overwhelming, because we take a little bit, probably a few too many leaps when we want to make change, instead of these little MDCs that I'm talking about, little micro degrees of change. So health, here's another fun one. So let's say you want to lose a few pounds. Okay, probably very common thread there. So when you approach, let's say you're at a party, or let's say you baked your own cookies, or you found some cookies at a party, and there's this beautiful plate, fabulous chocolate chip cookies, my favorite. I love cookies. And you go up and you're thinking, oh, wait, I'm supposed to be on a diet. I'm not supposed to have sugar right now. My goal is to lose 5 pounds. How does that equal my goal? You're right. Cookies don't necessarily equal losing 5 pounds, but part of the journey of losing 5 pounds is that you have to be happy along the way. Don't make this too hard for yourself. Restricting things can be just as overwhelming, right? When you restrict something, that feels like a loss. That feels like, oh no. And then you want to go do more of it later, because as soon as you lose that 5 pounds, you're like, oh, I can have the cookies. So why not? Let's not do that anymore. Let's break that cycle. Let's just keep moving the needle in the right direction instead of having to go back and forth and swing back and forth. We don't like swinging back and forth. It doesn't feel good. If we want to be consistent and keep moving gently into that direction, I love cookies. I eat cookies. Even when I want to lose 5 pounds, I eat cookies, because if I don't, I will get sad. I will probably get cranky, and nobody likes a cranky Christina, believe you me. So I eat a cookie, but guess what? I don't have to have 3 cookies, because I might normally have 3 cookies. Sounds like me. And that's okay. And maybe there's a night that I had 3 cookies because I just couldn't help myself. Okay, let's not beat ourselves up either. But let's say, okay, you know what? We're going to take this moment by moment, little micro degrees of change. I am going to make a decision right now. I'm going to have 1 cookie, and then I'm going to see how I feel, because cookies don't necessarily lead to where I want to be in my losing of 5 pounds. But right now, I just really want one. And it's life, right? Eat the cookies. So I eat the cookie. And then I think, I want 3 cookies. But then I think, well, I had my cookie. It was yummy. You know what? I could have a cookie later if I really want one. Why don't we take a minute? Maybe I'll eat something healthy first, fill my belly just a little bit. Or maybe I'll go have a conversation with somebody. Or maybe I'll go turn on a comedy. Or maybe I'll go listen to Christina's podcast. Anything to just break it up, right? And say, well, okay, maybe I don't need 3 cookies. Let's try and fill the space. And then when you get a little bit of time away from those cookies, you might say, wow, I did it. I really didn't need the cookie. And oh my God, congratulations, me. I moved the needle just a little bit, just a little bit. Now, I'm hoping that you understand my formula of how we can compound interest our life. It is all those little micro degrees of change, those little MDCs, how often we do them, how well they support our goal, and also taking the time in between just to make sure that we are enjoying life. So let's enjoy change. Let's enjoy creating your ultimate 180. Thank you so much for joining me. If you would like more information on how to integrate any of this information into your ultimate 180, just join my VIP list on my website, ultimate180.com. You will discover what's ultimately possible for you. And you can catch all my episodes on my website, on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, or wherever you find your shows.